Representative LaFour. Continuing on the 11th order of business, House has before it House Bill 1383, which has been read. Mr. Chief Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 1383, introduced by Representatives D. Anderson, Bowe, Brandenburg, Kempeneck, M. Nelson, and Wise, and Senator Miller. House Bill 1383 is a bill for an act to create and enact a new section, Chapter 15.1-07-14 of the North Dakota Century Code relating to qualified electors for purposes of school district bond elections. Mr. Speaker, your Education Committee recommends do not pass on House Bill 1383 by a vote of 11 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I stated, 1383 would allow someone, if they're a qualified elector, meaning they're 18 years old at least, and eligible to vote, if they lived in Texas, happened to own a piece of land or a piece of property in Bismarck, North Dakota, there was a bond election, that they would be able to vote in that election. And seems like there's quite a few problems showed up. How many people have their name on that title of that piece of property? It could be a father and a mother and one child, or it could be a small corporation that has 6, 7 people. We don't know if they'd all be able to vote or not. School elections can be consolidated with city, county, and statewide elections. It would mean that election board would have to be very diligent in how they passed out the ballots and to who they passed out the ballots to. Because as I understand, they would only be able to vote on the issue of a bond, not for the school, for a school board member or any other issue. And there was also set up 2 classes of voters, which is something that we never have done before. It would allow them to vote in Texas, say, and also vote on this one issue in North Dakota. I don't think there's any state or any place that's ever happened before. And then it could be what kind of property. I live in a small town where if you happen to own a lot, you pay about $2 worth of taxes on them. This would allow then that person to vote in an election, in a school bond election. And I don't know if that's quite the way it's supposed to be. And also, how would you prove, what documents would you need to prove that you had property? And then you'd have to determine that, of course, and then determine the authenticity of that property. I don't think, as I said earlier, I don't think there's a place in the United States that you can do that. We've cherished the one person, one vote issue for as long as I can remember, at least. And due to all those reasons, your committee give this 11-0, do not pass, and we hope the body concurs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any discussion? Representative D. Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. That was a long day I shouldn't say a long day, it was a short day for me because I got the bill killed before I even left the committee room. But I brought it forth for a constituent that had his property taxes went way up, and I still believe that if you're getting taxed, you should have some form of representation to at least have a say in the issue, so that's why I did it.
Representative Brandenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and you notice that my name's on this bill too, and I mean, you know, some of the points that were brought out are absolutely true, but I think it's more about the frustration about the bonding issues out there that are going on in the voting when you have agriculture and you have residential and you go out and vote on these bonds and you got 90% of it being funded by agriculture and 10% being funded by residential, and yet the votes are not fair when you go look at the breakdown of the the voters of that district. And I really do think that this discussion needs to be addressed. And maybe this bill wasn't exactly the right one, but I agreed to sign on it because I see the frustration that Representative Anderson shares that I share with him. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, this mechanism probably isn't right, but we're going to have to find something that is right. So, thank you.
Representative Beadle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering if perhaps the bill sponsor or someone from the committee could answer a question for me. I'm just curious what definition of freeholder is in statute. I don't know if we're referencing 1700s where you have to be a white landowning male, or if it's a freeholder and that it's a clear title with absolutely no encumbrances or liens on it. Because if that was the case, which is a common real estate definition of freeholder, then just about every single person in the state wouldn't be able to vote on any of these measures. So I'm just kind of curious.
Representative Nathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly. Freeholder means property owner.
Further discussion, Representative Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, freeholder is a very antiquated term given to property owner. It probably came over from England and is used in the U.S. Constitution and has filtered down to us. But that's not the reason I stood up to speak. I guess I do owe the prime sponsor of this bill an apology. My back is towards the door in our committee room. I thought he was out of the room. I said, I said, Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion? He said, yes, so I made it. So I do apologize to the prime sponsor.
Thank you, Representative Kelch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for final consideration House Bill 1383. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Key will be closed. The clerk will take your record. Final vote shows 12 yea, 78 nay, 4 absent, not voting. House Bill 1383 is declared failed. Continuing on the 11th order of business, House has before